Thanks everybody for being here. Thank you for taking time out of your day to spend some time with us to learn about a brand new product coming out. Just like I said in the very first webinar that I did, I want to change this up a little bit because one, I think it's important for you all to know that it's not just me sitting in a room making all of this curriculum. In fact, the truth is that there's a team around the building of this curriculum. It's not one person doing it. It's a team. It's an organization. Really, everybody contributing, working together to build these things. And I think it's important for you to hear from more of the team that's building the curriculum. So in that regard, we're going to change it up a little bit today. Rather than me talking for 30 minutes, because I know that you all absolutely love that, we're going to take a little bit of time and kind of do a little bit more of an interview Q&A. But I have Kristen Thompson here. She's our elementary curriculum developer. She's just a little bit about her background. She has a bachelor's degree in Christian education from Wheaton College, and she has a master's in teaching from George Fox University. And she started with us here at Awana just before Christmas break, and then went on Christmas break, and then came back 2 weeks later, and then dove off the deep end and dove into all things TNT. But we are delighted that she's a part of the team and so excited. But part of also the reason why I wanted her to be on our webinar today is because she's been largely responsible for crafting the essentials for TNT. So as we talk about, really everything related to the essentials, I think that she's just an important voice for you all to hear. And so with that, one of the things I want to just go ahead and talk about. So first off, Kristen, what are the essentials?
Well, hey, Chris. The essentials are really an abridged version of the handbook for non-handbook kids. And we can get into more of what that means, but that gives you a brief summary of how you can think about what the essentials are.
That's great. One of the things, as we talk about scalability of product and having different options that meet different kids' needs is really about audience. So really, if you were to think about the essentials, who are the essentials made for? Who's going to best be served by this resource?
Yeah, and that is such a good question. And really, the essentials serve a lot of different people. And so I will bring up just some of those people, but you can use your imagination to all the people who could benefit from this. We've got kids who are new to Christianity, kids who are new to Awana. Those would be some of those audiences. We talked about bringing the Bring a Friend section back in this book too. And so some of those friends that are going to be coming might not have a lot of church exposure, and they are going to be needing a different sort of discipleship experience, but they're going to need an experience that gives them the ability to participate in the discipleship experience of Awana. So those are going to be some of the people that you're going to see the essentials reach. Kids who, for the full handbook, for one reason or another, is just out of their reach. We talked about some of those kids, but there's other kids in other ways that just looking at the size of the handbook or the amount of material that's in there, they're going to want something different. And so you'll see how the essentials will benefit them. Clubs who need a low cost option, and the essentials is going to be a smaller product. It's a bridge, like we talked about, and we'll get more into detail on that. But for clubs who are looking for that low cost option, the essentials is going to be one possibility for them. Also for parents who want to study alongside their kids, they'll be diving in at a different level than their kids might be who are in the handbook, but they're still going to be wanting to engage with the material and learn, either for their own benefit or for being able to help their kids by understanding what their kids are learning about.
Yeah, no, all great stuff right there. Thank you so much. One of the things that we're going to talk about with the essentials that I think is important is that obviously, since it is different, it's a new product coming out. We haven't had anything like this for children's ministry. However, if you are familiar with our youth ministry, Trek and Journey, they have had essentials. So I think there's a lot of people out there that are really trying to answer the question, what does this do? So maybe if you could help unpack that a little bit for us, when we talk about the essentials, what does it do?
Yeah, and that, I think the most important thing to understand there is our goal with Awana in general is a discipleship experience. We're wanting to engage kids in discipleship, and the Essentials really just allows that to happen in different ways for different kids that maybe the current handbook wouldn't be meeting. So it makes club accessible for a wider range of kids, those kids that are outside of that normal range of what they would do with the handbook. It allows kids to be part of a group without completing any work before club, which for some kids, they say, no, I love that work and I want the deeper experience. But for some kids, for one reason or another, that's not going to work for them, but they still want to be part of what's going on at Awana. It's an on-ramp to a full handbook experience. You were talking again about that, bring a friend. So you've got the friend who comes with the kid who is diving deep in the handbook, and that friend, he wants to understand what is going on, but he's not ready for all of the material. It would overwhelm him. So this gives the kids that come as friends an on-ramp experience to the handbook, where they might start on this and then they might eventually move into a handbook. Gives them that stepping stone on the way. It is developmentally accessible. That's something we've worked about. It does allow parents to work alongside their kids and to learn. And it creates opportunities for Awana's core curriculum to be used in different ways in different spaces than it is being used currently. So we're excited about that. And it also allows for the leaders to engage with a diverse spectrum of kids. As you're going to see when we look at a sample of it, the leaders are going to be able to have those kids who might be checking out otherwise actually have something that they're looking at, and that they can kind of shepherd them through while still maintaining order and group experience that's positive for everyone.
Great, thank you so much for that. Yeah, I think one of the metaphors that we're currently using inside the building here is that this is, we're looking at Essentials very much as a Swiss Army knife. It has a lot of different utilitarian functions to it, as opposed to a chef's knife that only does one particular thing. So definitely being able to see it being used in a multiplicity of spaces is something that not only have we seen that with our Trek and Journey Essentials, but interesting to see how many unique spaces Essentials is going to be used in just the children's ministry arena. I think one of the things everybody's excited to participate in our webinar and see is a sample of it. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And Kristen, if you could go ahead and just walk us through, all right, what am I looking at here? So take a few moments and just walk me through this.
Sure. So what we're looking at is section 4.2. This is the one that is on the website as a free sample to download, both in the Essentials, but also in the handbook and small group and large group guide. So you can go on and you can pull up this exact same thing by getting that free sample. And what I think is important to mention here is if you, and I'll show you in a little bit kind of what the handbook looks like in comparison, it's going to look a lot the same. You've got the same backgrounds that you're going to see in the handbook, same sections, same topics. Underneath the main heading there where it says prayer, you've got the one sentence summary of what we're trying to communicate in the lesson to these kids. So in this one, prayer is an ongoing and personal conversation with God. And that's going to be true of all of the lessons in Essentials, that there's that one sentence takeaway, which is helpful for the kids and helpful for the leaders who are working with these kids. Then we've got your start here section. That is going to be the same start here question that you're going to see in the handbook. So in here, we do not leave a space for the kids to write in an answer. We just leave it as a hanging question, because again, we don't want kids who aren't, for one reason or another, doing the work ahead of time to feel like they had something they needed to write in there. A lot of our active participation using the Essentials is going to be during club. It's going to be that small group part where we're going to have the work that they're going to do, the things they're going to be filling out are during that small group and large group time. So you've got your start your section, you've got the question, then you've got your memorize section where that little red heart is and the word memorize. That is the same verse that the kids are going to be looking at in the handbook. It's also versioned out in the 4 versions that we do for our handbook. And that's going to be there for those kids to reference right there on the same one page, because as you'll notice with the Essentials, it is all on one page of a spread for kids to be looking at. This is all of lesson 4.2 on this one page. So you've got the verse there for the kids to look at and to reference and to memorize as well, should they choose to do that. Now, Explore section there, you've got the blue little magnifying glass icon and the word Explore. Now, that is the Bible study portion that you're going to see in the handbook, but here it is abbreviated. We've taken out some of those blanks to fill in ahead of time, but we've given the same basic content. Anything that would have been done as a blank now is either written within that text structure there as more of a sentence or something for the kids to read and think about, or we've used the sidebar feature. So Chris, I don't know if you can move your cursor over just a circle for people over there. There you go. So that yellow box there is our sidebar. That's kind of, in a way, if you think about like your study Bible or some kind of thing like that, it gives you just that extra spot that gives you more information about what you're reading about. Now, for these kids, we're not going to assume that all of them might have a Bible at the ready, although that's definitely a space that they can be used in for those kids who do. We've tried in designing and crafting this to make the Essentials standalone so that kids could look at it with or without a Bible. We give them encouragement to look up in the Bible, but in case flipping to 2 Kings is going to be a challenge for them, either for not being comfortable yet with the Bible or for one reason or another, they've got what they need right there. And it also gives them the ability to still do some work of looking from one section to the other just to see what's available in terms of what the kids are learning about as they do the Explore section. Now, we have the definitions there at the bottom. Those are the same definitions that are going to be used in the handbook, and those are words that kids might not know offhand. We want to make sure that they've got those to understand what the content is telling them. And then the discussion questions at the bottom, they're in the yellow. Now, those are the same discussion questions that are in the handbook for each lesson, and they are going to be the same discussion questions that the small group leader is going to be using as they discuss, although the small group leader is going to have more, and we'll talk more about that during our small group leader guide webinar. But as you probably were listening, you probably heard the word same a lot, and that's because we've intentionally crafted the Essentials to have a lot of the same features, a lot of the same look and feel as the handbook does, but just in abbreviated form.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Kristen, for walking us through that. Again, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen. If you want to take a deeper look at that, you can go ahead and download a copy from awanatT.org, I believe /sample. You can get a more in-depth look in that. A lot of things, Kristen, were obvious there that were some similarities and differences. But how do the Essentials actually compare to the handbook? So maybe walk us through some of the specs of it. I believe that you have some samples to show us, but go ahead and just share with us a little bit about how it compares.
Well, first I will show you just kind of visually how to think about it. So if you're imagining our typical handbook lesson, so we've got the sample lesson of 4.2, and I will just show you what it looks like in the handbook. So in the handbook, and again, this is the same you can download off the website. This is just my non-fancy printing way to do it. Here we've got this page, this page, this page, and this page. Now that is all lesson 4.2. And again, that involves a lot of the extra sections, the graphic novel, the extra credit, and the pray section. Now we have taken all of that content and we have distilled it down to one page. So this is the Essentials 4.2 that Chris just shared on his screen. And the basic idea is there's a lot of content that we are giving in the handbook, and we wanted to just really bring it down to a simplified version for those non-handbook kids that they would be able to internalize. So here is your one page versus here we've got, and again, that's one page spread, so it will be 2 pages with the spiral in the middle, but you get the idea, this one page spread versus all of this. Now, if you can imagine what that looks like when you're looking at a book, that's going to be a handbook of typical size versus an essentials, which is going to be a lot smaller. And so there is, the covers are going to be very similar. The visually how it looks within each lesson is going to have a lot of the same, from one kid looking at one to the other kid looking at the other. They're going to look the same, relatively speaking, but there's a huge amount of size difference in the amount of pages per lesson. And so again, going back to our friend example, we've got, Joey who brings his friend, and the friend has never gone to Awana before, maybe has not gone to church very much before. So Joey's going to be ready to dig in deep. He wants those extra credit sections. He wants to do all of the filling in. The friend is coming and is willing to be part of this discipleship experience, but is not ready to do 6 pages of lessons or work, or just ingesting that much content. We've pared it back for the friend, so that when they're sitting in their small group, because that's going to be the main part where they're going to be really engaging in this discipleship and discussion. One friend's going to be looking at Joey's going to be looking at this, his friend's going to be looking at this, or we can use the Explorer section, because that's a lot of what our content is. Relatively speaking, they're looking at the same thing. They've got the same question that they've been asked in the start here, and they've got the same discussion questions. So those are some of the comparisons that you can see there. The start here activity, the memory verse, the Explore section, and the discussion questions are all the same basic content that's in there. Yeah, I think that's everything that I had to say about that. But we'll see. Maybe we'll get to more as we go.
Yeah, I think one question I know people are going to ask because of something that's missing at the bottom of the essentials is that, no, not necessarily that it's missing, it was designed that way. That they're gonna be like, so is there a signature sign off for the essentials? So I'm gonna try to hit you up with 2 questions. One, is there a sign off section in the essentials? And then if there isn't, how do awards work with essentials? So maybe speak to that a little bit.
Right, and this comes with an important disclaimer that we love our Awana leaders, and we do not want to make their lives more crazy. So for any of you Awana leaders who are watching, know that we do not want to make your lives more crazy. So when you think about how do awards work, you will notice, yes, there's no sign-off section here. It is all, as Chris shared on his screen, just very plain and basic, and that is because it's not to be awarded the same as the handbook. We have an essentials completion certificate, and that is to be given to the kids who finish the handbook, or to finish the essentials. But at the same time, we are also giving churches some leeway, because this is a Swiss Army knife. It's going to be used in a ton of different ways to do what they see fit in terms of helping the kids to work through this with motivation, but it won't be in the typical award structure. So I don't know if you want to add anything there to that, Chris.
Yeah, I think one question that people probably are going to ask and wonder is if I have a kid that does essentials, does that will a kid who attempts to do the essentials be eligible for a book award? And the answer is no. So in order to obtain book awards, as well as be eligible for Timothy Awards, and then also on track for citation, they have to complete the primary handbook. We don't give major awards for the essentials. But yeah, no, that's good. So one of the questions too, that just shifting gears here on a separate topic, do kids in the essentials need to be in their own group? Or was this, explain, maybe dive into that a little bit, because we're going to have 2 different resources, an essentials and a handbook. Are we talking about 2 different groups now, or was this made to work in the same?
Yeah, and that again, because we love our leaders, no, we did not design this to be in their own groups. We actually believe that the discipleship experience is going to be really cool, whether you have kids who are mixed, both handbook and essentials, or if your club who does something different, there's going to be that same discipleship experience possible, whether the kids are in essentials or whether they're in the handbook, or a combination of both. We're imagining there would be a combination for a lot of churches. Now, you got your small group leader with a small group leader guide that reflects both of these things. So there's not a difference in what they need to be asking in terms of questions. There's not a, that's discussion questions the kids are going to be ready to answer are the same. The start here is the same. So we're excited. Kids do not need to be in their own group. They can be part of the discussion and the discipleship experience together.
That's great. Appreciate that. Another one relating to group dynamics a little bit. What if I have a kid who starts in the essentials but then wants to move to the handbook? Can he or she do that?
Yeah. So let's go back to this example of a friend. So let's say the friend who goes with the kid who's been coming to Awana for a while, who's in the handbook. He's in the essentials. They want to be in the same group because they're friends. Then after a little time, he starts noticing, hey, your handbook has some cool stuff that mine doesn't have, and I'm ready now. I understand a little more. I'm ready to do this deeper experience. That kid then would be able to start into the handbook just in that same lesson that they might be on that week, because the lesson structure is the same. If you go download our curriculum guide, it's going to be the same for essentials and for the handbook. However, where it does get a little tricky then is once that kid starts in the handbook, he's going to be able to have those sections signed off by his leaders and be memorizing verses. His experience from there on out is going to be a handbook experience. But if he wants to go back because, say, that book award is really important to him now, maybe his friends are earning one and he wants to do the same, then he's going to have to work on his own to complete those sections, because we do want to honor the fact that the kids who are doing the handbook are engaging deeper, are having to do a lot of work ahead of time. And so to award for a book award, the kids are going to have to go back through. But in order to just jump straight into the handbook, no big deal, because they're learning the same basic content.
Great. I see that we're almost running out of time, so I just got maybe one or two more questions to ask you, and then we're going to turn it over to our audience so that we can give them an opportunity to ask some questions. But so Essentials for Mission Evidence of Grace is going to be available on shelf July 1 and ready for this fall, correct?
Right, that's right.
Okay. Now, I'm sure that there's a lot of people out there who, especially if they've been paying attention to our webinars, they know that starting or making available July 1 of 2018, we're going to have available the retrofit for Mission Grace in Action. Are we also going to be dropping Essentials for Mission Grace in Action July 2018?
We are. So Essentials for Mission Grace in Action will be available that same day, and it will be in a similar format to what you see here.
Great. Now, and then I know, I think I've been paying attention a little bit to the chat and just seeing some questions around pricing come in, because essentially, yeah, it is, different sizes. It's going to be different there, and that the Essentials book will be priced the same as the Essentials for Trek. So I believe if you go on our store right now, you'll see that our Trek Essentials are, if you're a member, it's around $3.49 for an Essentials guide. If you're a non-member, it's $4.49. So you can see just the price difference between price per handbook and price for Essentials. That for some churches out there that need a low-cost option or something else, or that they want to be able to use Essentials as a family ministry opportunity, pulling parents into their ministry. It is going to provide another tool in the toolbox to be able to have a more robust Awana experience inside of their club. Okay. All right. I want to go ahead and turn it over to the audience to see if we have any questions. So, Missy, do we have any questions out there?
Yes, sir. We got a lot of really great questions, actually, and I'm trying to actually determine the similarities and the common threads between a lot of questions and lumping them together. So, again, if you don't get a specific answer that you're looking for, please contact our customer care team. I'm going to give that little disclaimer before we start into responding to these questions. They can be reached at ttupdate@awana.org. So feel free to email in your question if it's specific. First, though, I want to answer Kathy, who just sent in a question on the Q&A forum, and she said, how can our church review these books beforehand? Well, you're in luck. To anybody who's watching, tell your friends. The sample is available online. It's available at awanatt.org. So please go on there, download a sample, and you'll actually be able to see a full lesson of the Essentials Handbook along with the full TNT Kids Handbook as well, to see how they might interact side by side. So, okay, this leads into some of the questions that we have, Chris. Can you please clarify or perhaps provide some tips about how two groups interact? Because I think you and Kristen have fully unpacked the fact that these two books can be used simultaneously. You can have one kid using the Essentials Handbook and one using the full TNT Kids Handbook. Give us an idea of how that might work in small group time and what that looks like.
Yeah, I think, and I just recently just saw this inside of a club, because no doubt in every single one of our clubs and in our small groups, we have kids that are just different. They come with different skills, with different abilities, and they're all sitting in the same group. You have some kids that need to be honestly challenged. I actually just recently heard a story of a kid that finished the Mission Grace in Action handbook a couple of months ago. Like, he was done, and he had finished all the extra credit inside of the new handbook and said all the verses, and he was just like, well, what else do you got? But then there are also in the same conversation, there are kids who honestly see that almost as a bridge too far, mainly because it's just they just come with a different set of skills. The point between the Essentials and the handbook is that it is similar content. The discussion questions are the same. You're going to see that largely it varies in features related to extra credit. Obviously, the comic strip we didn't include in there. Really, the idea behind Essentials is that we do have kids that are walking into our church off the street or being brought with by families, and then they didn't grow up with multiple years of exposure inside of a church ministry setting. They don't know who Jesus is. To some degree, they probably think that a lot of us are pretty strange in the way that we act and behave, simply because it just hasn't been a part of their culture ever in their life. So if we're going to take those kids, what type of a resource can we provide that's going to help reach these kids where they are, rather than trying to drag them to where we think they should be? So in order to do that, having both resources and using them inside of the same small group provides an opportunity where you're not asking a child to go run a marathon on day one, but you're providing the challenge to the marathon runners so that they can continue on in their journey. So it's going to be just a different dynamic, but I think discussion-wise, you're going to see that really no difference between the two materials being used. I think part of the difference is just going to come to the okay, what is being asked of a child inside of these groups? Because, like you said, we included a memory verse inside of the Essentials. They are free to memorize that. If you want to incentivize that memorization amongst Essentials kids, you're more than welcome and free to do that inside of your Essentials club. However, at the same time, there is no section sign off at the bottom, so it doesn't qualify for any of our major awards. But I think it's going to provide opportunities, and I think the key word overall in Essentials is accessibility. Giving kids rather than, and I've shared this illustration before, and I just want to share it again, that I have this comic strip in my office where it's a monkey, a giraffe, a couple other animals right there, and there's a teacher saying, okay, today we're going to have the climb the tree test, and behind them are a bunch of trees. Well, the monkey's going to win because he's genetically wired to climb the tree. In a lot of ways, we have kids that just are genetically hardwired to be really great memorizers. But we also have a bunch of other kids that may not be necessarily how they're hardwired. They may need just a different experience, or being able to access the Awana experience on a totally different level. So that was maybe a little bit more than what the question was asking for, but just unpacking more layers behind Essentials there, Missy.
Oh, that's awesome. I think the more info you can provide, the better. It helps build a greater picture for how the two work together, and who is really served by the two products. So that's really, really awesome and very exciting to know about the solution. I have got a lot of questions coming in about awards. And I know we covered this. Kristen did a great job of covering this information, but can you go through again what the kids are actually doing, those that are using the essentials, what they actually achieve week to week, and what award do they end up with at the end of the year?
Yeah, so Kristen, do you want to take that one?
Sure. So the award for the end of the year for finishing the Essentials book is a completion certificate, and that's similar to what we've seen in youth ministry. So the kids they're getting something because they've participated in this discipleship experience. So that is the standard award that they would get. But as Chris and I have mentioned, there is the ability for churches to incentivize the essentials and completing, say, memory verses or being part of the discussion, that they're going to be able to, churches are going to have some freedom there to decide what kind of kids they have that are using this product and what they are going to be able to use to motivate those kids to do that.
Awesome. So you're saying that verse memory is still a foundational piece of the Essentials book, that they're just receiving a condensed version of that Bible study.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. If verse memory wasn't important, we wouldn't have included in the book. And it's right underneath the Start Here activity. It says very clearly memorize. So we are definitely wanting our Essentials kids to memorize the verses. However, but what you're not going to see is the 4 gold extra credit verses or the review verses on top of that, because for some of these kids, they may not have memorized scripture a day in their life. Throwing all that at them right out the gate in terms of entering into a discipleship experience can be somewhat intimidating for them. So presenting them with what they are able to do and then having them build up confidence. So as they progress forward in the program, they feel more comfortable, they're developing skills, they feel stronger, then possibly moving them to the full-fledged handbook is a direction we see to go.
Excellent. In our last TNT webinar, we talked about how you guys are shifting, or at least what we're doing with TNT Mission Evidence of Grace, and addressing some of the needs that have come up from clubs all over the U.S. about verse memory length. Can you talk about, again, maybe reiterating that previous webinar about verse length and how that works from Kids Handbook to Essentials? Is it the same verse in there for verse memory?
Yeah, so between Essentials and the handbook, they are the same verses from week to week. So it's not like a kid in Essentials has a different memory verse. For those of you who are interested in some of the content that we talked about in terms of the kids' handbook experience, I encourage you to go check out our webinar. But just to reiterate something that we mentioned last time, that for this next handbook that's going to drop and be ready for this coming fall and available this summer, that we did pay very careful attention to the memory verses that we picked. And part of what we're going to be doing in that, starting this year and being available for the summer of 2018, is that we're going to go back and retrofit and make some changes to the kids' handbook based off of some of these changes that we've made to this second book. And largely all those changes are directly from feedback from viewers like you. I mean, really, it's been, your participation in this process by speaking in and giving us great constructive feedback that's helped us really chart the course for these structural changes that we've made to the curriculum. So, so in that breath, I say thank you. Thank you for participating with us, for engaging us in this process. Your feedback has been great.
That's awesome. Okay, we're getting close to the end of our time, but there are quite a few questions about fast track time and how verses are reviewed within that time. Can you explain how fast track works with both TNT Mission Evidence of Grace and with the inclusion of small groups? Should churches choose to use that time for small group time?
Yeah, so with evidence of grace, fast track time is no different than what it was this year. If your church has elected to do a fast track time is just a dedicated section sign off time. It's an opportunity for your kids to say their memory verse. It's an opportunity for you to go through their handbook to see that they've completed the requirements in order to have the section signed off. And a couple of things that we've seen successful in this regard is, and I would give two examples. Number one, for churches who want to have more opportunity in their small group time to have a small group discussion, having fast track at the, actually, I want to give three examples. Number one, first, having it at the beginning of club, like before club starts. Now, part of you are thinking, well, how am I going to get more leaders to be able to do that? Some of the places that we've seen it be really successful is by having some of your senior saints or even some of your parents come a little bit early. They don't have to stay to be a full leader for the entire night of club, but they are there just to listen to verses for like the first 15 minutes. I even know one club that does it for a whole half hour, largely because they open their doors a half hour before club starts and kids are just hanging out there anyway. So engaging them on the verses is a great opportunity there. Second opportunity is having a fast track component on, for instance, say a Sunday morning. Where we have, I know a couple of churches that have incorporated fast track as part of their Sunday school or Sunday morning program. So kids can come on Sunday morning as another alternative to say their verses. And then the last example that I would give is that I actually had a leader about 2 years ago tell me that 30 minutes is too long to be hit by a dodgeball. That some of these kids, I mean, it's great for them to run around in a gym, but sometimes their games just get very drawn out. To the point where some of them were even losing interest and really, to some degree, chaos was starting to ensue. So what they actually did was they split their game time in half. So they did 15 minutes of fast track and 15 minutes of game time, split the group in half, and then switch them halfway through. And that's how they got their kids to say their verses and then also have game time. And I think that it ran really efficiently for that particular church. So those are just three options of what you can do for fast track. And the whole point there is to really buy more time so that you can engage in relational discipleship with your kids during small group. Now, one of the things that we're going to be talking about in our next webinar, so I'd encourage you to come back and spend some time with us as we walk through the new small group guide. Because the new small group leaders guide, one of the things that we are going to talk about, because inside of the redesign that we did for that resource, is we built in some sample schedules. Because a lot of our feedback that we've heard from leaders is, how do I even get through small group? How do I do it all? And so we have some recommended schedules in there, and we'll cover that in the next webinar. So I encourage you to come back, hang out with us again as we're going to be talking through that particular information.
Excellent, excellent. Well, we are getting close to the end of our time. Chris, for one more time, I know it's been said multiple times, but tell us again what the expectation should be for Mission, Grace, and Action. Will we be seeing a reprint in 2018, or will we be seeing it this fall? What can everyone expect?
Yeah, so for the fall of 2018, you're going to expect to see 3 resources from us. You're going to see what we're calling the retrofit of Mission, Grace, and Action. Because really what my team and I are going to spend the next year working on is we're going to go back, and some of the structural changes that you're going to see inside of this next handbook, we're going to go back and make those changes for Grace in Action. We're also going to spend time really looking at the memory verses, and then also looking at the explore content too, because we've seen, based on a lot of feedback, that those are areas that we need to be paying attention to, and largely off of your feedback going and really retrofitting it. So there may be changes to that. Obviously, so next year, 2018, the evidence of grace is going to stay the same. And then also for the fall of 2018, you're going to see that we're going to be dropping our 3rd handbook in the TNT update series, which we don't yet have a title for. But so those 3 resources will be available fall of 2018.
That's excellent. Well, we have got an onslaught of additional questions, but I'm afraid in order to make this easier for club leaders that are viewing after the fact, we'd like to keep it down to 45 minutes of time. So Chris, would you please give us some parting advice, some parting words. Again, I've got to reiterate, if any of the questions weren't answered in this webinar, please email us, ttupdate@awana.org. We want to dialogue with you and we want to talk to you. You can also contact customer care. But Chris, will you please close us out with some parting words, some advice, sir?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think all that I want to do to end our time is to say that we want to connect with you. And we've created some spaces for you to connect with us. So one of the ways that you can connect with us is that if you are on social media, if you're on Twitter and Facebook, please check us out on Facebook at Awana Children's Ministries, and then on Twitter at Awana CM. So one of the ways that if you do have a question, please go ahead and really engage with us in those spaces around it. Or like Missy said, at ttupdate@awana.org, you can email us your questions. If you haven't already done so, please check out awanatt.org. If you haven't signed up yet to be a part of our mailing list, please make sure that you do that so that you can get updates on more information coming out about the release, additional webinars that we'll be doing. And then the third way that you can engage with us is that if you do have questions, please contact your local missionary. We have missionaries all across the United States, and they are here to serve you, and they absolutely love doing it. So please contact them. They are a great resource for your church. And I encourage you to reach out to them if you have any particular questions. And then with that being said, thank you so much for taking time to just hang with us this afternoon, learn more about a new product. Again, I totally appreciate everything that you all do as leaders. You stand in the gap every single day. You show up to reach kids. You love on them. You are patient with them. And the work that you're doing has incredible eternal value. And I get excited by wondering, because of all of the small, faithful investments that you all are making in the lives of kids, just being able to think about the wake, the tremor that's going to come and happen in the kingdom of God because of all of the effort that you're doing simply by making your life available to our King so that he can work through you to accomplish the purposes of his kingdom. Like, that gets me excited. So keep doing what you're doing. Don't give up. I know it's April. I know you guys have been doing club all year long. Some of you are starting to downshift a little bit. Maybe you got like 3 or 4 weeks left. I would encourage you to finish strong. Don't give up. Make a good finish. You're not done yet. And everything that you do, it totally matters. And from all of us here at Awana, thank you. Thank you for what you do. And with that, that's my drop the mic moment right there.
Excellent. Thanks again so much, Kristen, Chris, and Tommy working the controls. Appreciate all of you guys. And thank you so much, leaders, for joining us. And with that, we're over and out.